soggy night to a town meeting to discuss proposed sidewalk in West Cornwall. And I'd like to start the meeting by asking for nominations for a moderator.
Nominate Lisa Lansing.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations for moderator? Lisa's here. So, is there a motion to close nominations for moderator? All in favor of closing nominations? Say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to closing nominations? All those in favor of Lisa Lansing Samant as moderator? Say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous. Lisa.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to ask the town clerk, Vera Deneen, to read the call, please.
Electors and citizens qualified to vote in town meetings of the town of Cornwall are hereby notified and warned that a special town meeting will be held on Thursday, September 10, 2015, at 7:30 p.m. in the gathering room at Cornwall Consolidated School for the following purposes. Upon recommendation of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to appropriate up to $70,000 for the installation of a sidewalk in West Cornwall from the Wandering Moose Restaurant to the Cornwall Bridge Pottery Store. Funds to come from the town undesignated fund balance with the expectation of 100% reimbursement from State of Connecticut Main Street Investment Fund. Stated and signed at Cornwall, Connecticut, the 18th day of August 2015 by a majority of the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, so I'd like to make the following motion upon the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to appropriate up to $70,000 for the installation of a sidewalk in West Cornwall from the Wandering Moose Restaurant to the Cornwall Bridge Pottery Store. Funds to come from the town's undesignated fund balance with the expectation of 100% reimbursement from the State of Connecticut Main Street Investment Fund.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Now the floor is open for discussion. Do you want to start?
Sure, just a little
Okay.
bit of explanation. The town applied for this Main Street Investment Fund. This is money that could only be used for capital improvements to the main streets in Connecticut towns. And we were one of the few towns that actually got one. At the time, we also applied to bury the power lines around the covered bridge on the Cornwall side. That was not funded by the state, but they did fund $70,000 to install sidewalks, approximately $40,000 for West Cornwall, $30,000 for Cornwall Bridge. Since we got the grant, the selectmen decided just to do the projects in West Cornwall because we could originally, the Cornwall Bridge project was to connect the Bonnie Brook, which wasn't built when we applied for the project program, with the country market. And since that time, the country market has expanded what's now a picnic area, so there's not the brush and obstacles to go from one to the other there used to be. Plus, we found out you cannot use these funds on private property, only can be used on public property. So that, for that reason, plus it seemed like there was more of a need for a sidewalk in West Cornwall than there was in Cornwall Bridge. We focused on West Cornwall. We've retained the services of Roger Kane, who's done many construction infrastructure projects for the town, including the bridge replacement on Lower River Road in West Cornwall. He's agreed to be the project manager, and he has gone out and about, as I think we all have, and paid more attention to sidewalks, different designs than we have in the past. And so we've looked at various different places and come up with some ideas. So I think part of the reason for The reasoning behind this is obviously is not an incredibly pivotal issue for the future of West Cornwall, but I think it would be an amenity that would help tourists there, certainly the business in West Cornwall could need assistance. The town has provided some assistance over the years in the form of steep grants, allowing businesses to rehabilitate the facades of West Cornwall. And this would be another step that would make the village hopefully more tourist friendly. Most times we've been down there looking at the site, there have been people walking in the middle or up the road, and we've heard from residents how it is difficult to go along 128 there, especially in the wintertime when there's snowbanks and there are visitors that come year-round. And it would be nice to have a place for them to at least relax and not have to worry about trudging through the snow. The town would take on the responsibility of upkeep if the abutters do not want to do that themselves. And there is some flexibility in the design, as we said before. We have looked at it quite a few different places and quite a few different ideas on how to do it. So that's all I have to say. Roger does have some photos, and maybe he could do a brief presentation, and I'm sure there's plenty to talk about.
Okay. There are 4 different locations not far from here, 2 in Litchfield, 1 in Burlington, Connecticut, and Falls Village. I talked to a lot of people about their sidewalks and how they like them. One of the problems is I've talked to some people up in Massachusetts as far as what they're doing and why they're doing it and so forth. These, feel free to come up and take a look at them. There's multiple pictures under some. You'll find more of the same.
We can pass those around.
Yeah,
Roger.
sure. It says rubber. This is stamped concrete. This is pavers, and this is a poured concrete, and this one is bricks on top of concrete base. So if you just want to pass these around. Let me explain what has happened so far on the project. As Gordon has said, we did get the grant. The grant has a what I call a drop dead date of the end of the year. The money has to be expended by the end of the year. So it is our intention to start the project on or about the 1st of October and have it completed by the 1st of November. Thereby all the bills should be in and the necessary documentation to the people who fund the grant done by the end of the year. There's a 30 calendar day construction period for the project. We had a pre-bid meeting where the project was explained to 3 bidders that showed up and 1 that called in, and the same information was given to them. We received 2 bids. I've since talked to the bidders, thanked them for their participation in the bid process. I explained to them that there might be some subtle changes to the project. So what we have right now, what the contractors bid on, is a standard state highway department style sidewalk. This is 5 inches deep, 5 feet wide. It would not be at the gutter line of the road. There's going to be a buffer both between the property line and the curb line. Roughly, it varies anywhere from 1.5 feet to about 3 foot. One of the other things that should be kept in mind, the grade out there, I went out there and actually checked the grade. It's 3.7 to 4.3%. So the percent of grade on that sidewalk is going to be in the vicinity of 4% as far as a grade. It's fairly steep. The basic project is for a concrete style sidewalk. If we decide to do something different with these different treatments and so forth, that can be done and be an add-on to the bid price of what the contractors have bid on. So that's what's been done to date. Upon approval of the project, we'll go forward and get more specific as to what can be done out there. There's things that can be done with plantings. You'll see in some of the pictures, there's some very nice garden strips alongside the sidewalks between the actual gutter at Falls Village they have a very lovely rose garden between gutter line of the road and the sidewalk itself. I don't know if that would be good for the high-velocity snow plowing that goes by out there, but it's a very interesting garden, because this is the first year there. So that's what's happened to date, and as far as what the final product is, what we bid on is essentially a DOT-approved sidewalk. What we actually have the contractor build might be slightly amplified. Any questions? Yes?
But tonight, we're here to say, vote yes or no on the sidewalk, not the kind, correct?
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
just yes or no, that's it.
That's correct.
And at some point in time, do folks have a say in what will be built?
You have to ask the board of selectmen.
Right.
At some point in time,
Yeah.
are we gonna have public input at our
Right,
meeting
I'm
to
sure
know
we'll have
materials are
public
used?
input tonight. What I would like to do too is to meet with the abutters, since I've been traveling around. And I was thinking that, I mean, the people that actually live there or work there have a lot to say. We haven't heard from them. I did talk to Libby Mitchell, who with Jim had renovated the Pink House and really taken a lot on. One of her suggestions was perhaps the Falls Village Compromise, which is a concrete center highlighted by a brick on the outside of the sidewalk. I asked Pat McCare today to send me the specifications on their plans. So there's another option there. I said I went up to Great Barrington, as Roger said, there's options for planters, or there's a lot of gardening that's been incorporated in some of these plans, and maybe that in my mind can have a greater visual impact on a village. That maybe the pocket park has been very positive around the ridge. That could be an element that we could help facilitate. So I think the design at this point is fluid. We have to talk to the contractor, look at the plans. We have a selectmen's meeting next week. So I talk to the abutters next week, talk to the apparent low bidder. Currently, the current low bidder is Frost Construction, based here in Cornwall.
What was the name again?
Frost Construction,
Mhm.
Josh Tyson's group out of Cornwall Ridge, the current low bidder, and see what they're able to do. And so we will evolve this, and whatever decisions we finally make will be at an open selectmen's meeting. So I imagine when we talk about it tonight, we'll talk about it on Tuesday at our selectmen's meeting. Said probably have at least one on-site visit and get some of the plans from Falls Village, see what elements of that we want to incorporate. But as the answer to the question is, at this point, is we have to, before we have all these conversations, we have to know whether the town wants to do a project at all.
Judy?
So is there any way to take all of the money and extend the sidewalk above the railroad tracks? And is that something that the business owners on the other side of the railroad tracks would like to see happen?
Right now, we're under a pretty tight time frame as far as getting all this done. The problem, if you go any farther up the hill than we are now, you get into the railroad right-of-way, and they're very hesitant to have any changes, or any changes to the plan at this point would take quite a while to incorporate. And we've tried to do things like slow down signs and stuff, but as soon as we get close to the railroad, we have to set back and let that right-of-way take precedence. So I think that's the bigger problem at this point.
There's been a bunch of steep grants and similar processes to this. And by what you're all saying is that a lot of work has already taken place. In other towns, when steep grants and Main Street investment grants come up, there's far more involvement with the citizens and outreach, like public informational meetings, and even initially input from the citizens on projects that they would like to see completed also. So it's hard to like just come here, read a bunch of minutes that have been going on, but to process it all, just sitting here, and without all of that information. So in retrospect, or going forward, for any next projects, it would be good to have posters in town hall. It would be good to have public information meetings as the process continues. It would be good to have an opportunity for the citizens to have input, because to take all this in and make an informed decision on the spot is difficult.
Yes.
Janet Carlson Sanders, I live in West Cornwall, my business is there also. Oh, correct. Janet Carlson Sanders, I live in West Cornwall and also work there. I'm part of a sandwich generation, so I have 80-year-old parents and 10-year-old children, all of whom have to walk in the street to go anywhere down into West Cornwall. So I would certainly encourage my fellow citizens to vote for a sidewalk to keep children safe, our older generation safe, and I would also like to be able to walk down into the village and be safe as well, because cars do tend to pick up speed as they go along there. So I would certainly encourage that. I also wear the hat of the Economic Development Chair. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Economic Development Commission, but certainly I believe in supporting businesses and the businesses along the way. If you're down at one business, certainly walking up a clear, obvious path leading to other businesses would be a prudent thing for our town as well.
And your thoughts on
Yes,
materials
Erica?
for that, or?
You know, I'm sorry, I'll continue.
Sorry.
My feeling on materials is really that it be attractive and in fitting with our environment. I think it needs to be, safe primarily. I think it should be long lasting. Long lasting to me, 25 years, 50 years, that seems like a real long time to me. But again, safe, and safe and attractive. And I think I would defer, to like Libby and CJ and the folks and Todd, it goes right in front of the property. So I think Libby would certainly be one to talk to.
Bianca,
Well, in regard to Judy's remark,
could you speak up so we're
in regard to Judy's remark, I would have loved to see the same thing, something happening before a meeting like that, whether a sidewalk could have brought up even further, but then I had spoken to Heidi and it was made clear to me that the funding right now would just about, be enough for that stretch of a sidewalk. So I just left it at that. I never wrote a comment to the idea that there was only going to be the sidewalk from the Wandering Moose up past the pink, what used to be the pink house. So I left it at that because it would really be nice, essentially, to bring people up a little further past our property. But
And my answer to you on that was based on the concrete sidewalk prices that we got were $35,000 to $40,000.
exactly.
If we're gonna use the entire grant at 70, there's an extra $30,000. That could either be used to extend that further in that material, or use the funds for different materials, stamped concrete or the pavers instead.
okay. Yes, Cheryl.
Can you tell me where the sidewalk will start exactly and where it will end? Will it be in front of the stores or
It will,
to the side?
it will basically allow for the replacement of the sidewalk curbing in front of the Wandering Moose. It will start there, and one of the things that this will enable is probably better handicap access to the stores. Roger can tell me, but there would be an element of a new concrete or whatever entryway there to the Moose, and then it would go up the hill past the real estate office. It would go past the yellow pink house, and then it would stop at the driveway by the pottery store.
So not in front of the pottery store.
It gets you up to the pottery store, but because of all the different grade elevations and the steps there, it didn't go any farther.
Does any of this affect the parking at the Moose? What does the state have to say about that?
I think the footprint in front of the Moose would be exactly the same as it is now. So it would not affect,
3 feet?
what?
Isn't that about 3 feet wide?
I think.
Very narrow.
Yeah.
It's not 5 feet.
It's 5.5 feet in front of us.
It's 5.5 feet in front of the moose. Presently, he has flower boxes on some of that 5.5.
The flower boxes will be removed and just have that much more sidewalk. Be 5.5 foot sidewalk there.
Well, Roger, you said 1.5 feet minimum to 3 feet on either side of the sidewalk.
That's the,
So it's, what?
that's the grass area up by the pink house.
Oh, so
and
it's,
veins, there won't be any.
there won't be any down by.
The moose will be exactly the same. There will be no change in the footprint of the parking or the walkway at the moose. So the frontage of the moose remains exactly the same dimensions. The type of material may change. There'll be 7 handicap access ramps in the 240 feet of sidewalk. 7.
Because of driveways.
The driveway, you have to have one down into each driveway, one up from each driveway. There are only 2 driveways involved. So that's 4 ramps right there. There are 2 at the moose and 1 at the end. Total 7.
Yes, Heidi?
Can you, I know you explained this at the last Board of Selectmen's meeting, but we talked about if we were to change, so you went out to bid on straight concrete sidewalks. If we were to change that to something other than that, pavers, stamped concrete, whatever, you said there was some glitch with the state or some issue with the state?
We just have to get their approval. The state, all of this is going to be done within the DOT's right-of-way. The state doesn't necessarily own the property, they have control of the property. They have specifications as to what type of material and how it's to be used. Their recommendation is reinforced concrete. That is probably the most cost-effective and the safest in their opinion. If we want to modify this one way or another, we then have to apply for their approval for this. Regardless of what is done, it's going to require what's called an encroachment permit. And the state, I've already talked to the state, and they're not concerned with the fact that we would like to put a sidewalk in. What the sidewalk is going to be and who's going to do the work, that's primarily what they're concerned about. They want an insurance certificate and a bond on file before they allow the permit. So we will take care of that. Then we can go through the details. If there's any significant change in what the contractor has bid upon, it is the town's obligation then to write a work order to change the bid price. And I'm quite willing to work with the contractor on doing that. If we want to put some sort of edging, if we want to include some more formal plantings, if something like that is necessary, then we'll just add that to the existing bid price that we've got 2 bids. They're not terribly far apart, they're less than $5,000 apart. And both contractors are willing to work with the town as far as modest changes.
Do you think it could happen within our time frame, within
Yes.
that month, to get the work done in the end?
All we have to do is come up with what we want, and the contractors are quite willing to get it done.
Anybody? Yes.
If these sidewalks are built, are the property owners going to take over the maintenance of them?
Right now, we have the town responsible for that. But if the property owners want to do it, then they're welcome to do it. As the town initiated this, I did not feel that the property owner should be on the hook for doing that. So that's part of the deal. The town have to pay for some winter maintenance of it.
Aren't most sidewalk systems maintained by local businesses, property owners?
They are, and you get in some problems where, like the one by the post office right now, is barely maintained during the winter. In fact, usually it's covered with snow, so my feeling, if we're gonna do this, we should do it right. And if, Richard at one of the meetings says he's got a snow blower, maybe there's an easy way to do it that's not a big deal. So we'll work out whatever the practical thing is, but I don't wanna make it, I don't wanna oversell this and, again, make, probably most of this is in front of Libby and Jim's building, and they don't even live in the building or use the building, so to me, it's kind of a lot to ask them to go out there after every storm and plow it all off, if this is to be a public benefit. Maybe they're incredible, great citizens, maybe they'll do that anyway. They put a lot into it already. So we'll get the best deal for the town we can, but I also want to say the backup, you know, like most cities, Torrington, whatever, it's up to the merchant. I think this is slightly a different setup, that this is a 240-foot area, and the town doesn't have a whole lot of sidewalks, and we are, or are not, going to institute this, so. And I felt also the businesses, you know, could use a break, so if we have, town's going to do it, then the town's probably going to do the maintenance too.
But we're setting the precedent that if we're gonna extend it up the road, that we're gonna just.
Right, if it's a
take
town.
on that burden.
If it's a town project, but I don't think it's going to go very far up the road, and I don't think the town is on the hook to maintain the little sidewalk that's already there now.
Richard?
Yes, a liability issue, if somebody gets hurt on these sidewalks, now who would be responsible? Would the owners, or how would that work? I mean, if somebody slips and falls in the winter or something like that, I'm just curious about that sort of thing. How does that work?
There's always, you know, I did get something from the insurance company, and I maybe should have brought that. I'll bring it out.
Well, no,
to the
I'm
next
just-
select meeting. There's a criterion, or not everybody that falls gets to collect from the town. But certainly the town would have to, if that's the way we've gone into this, the town would have to do a reasonable job of maintenance
Right.
on the sidewalk. If we're negligent, obviously we're not gonna go out there after every snowflake, but
Right.
after every storm, we'd have to make some effort either to go after it and maintain it properly the way they do in Kent and Salisbury.
Yeah.
Now Falls Village is gonna have to take on 14 or 1,500 feet of sidewalk. So
Yeah.
the town would have to take on some responsibility, but in my mind, it's part of the overall attempt to make West Cornwall a little bit more tourist-friendly. We're working on parking and public toilets down at the old state garage. Hopefully that will happen. Hopefully, you said that the little parks make it better, and this may be another piece of that.
Yes, Joanne?
Well, Gordon, it's nice to hear your clarification on the liability issue, because it was slightly different, I believe, the way it was positioned at the earlier Board of Selectmen situations, and being very cognizant of liability issues, having had someone fall down the stairs and collect $925,000 in my own home. Yes, insurance companies pay the first time, but if, you know, the next time it comes around, they don't want to insure you, and if they do, they want you to pay a lot of money. So I'm glad to hear that the town is thinking about that responsibility, because that wasn't clear earlier. The subtle changes that Roger referred to, you have said basically that, as far as you know, the only thing DOT approves would be the concrete and not the pavers. So the pictures you passed around of the pavers are sort of a red herring. That's not a possibility, is that right?
All things are possible.
But in the last week, since we discussed it at the Board of Selectmen meeting, did you contact DOT and ask them if they would approve the pavers?
I have not contacted them specifically.
But we are under a tremendous time frame, so the actual possibility of the pavers should be discounted by anyone thinking that.
No, definitely not. The concept of the sidewalk is what I approached the DOT about. The DOT is not unhappy with the concept of putting a sidewalk in. Their recommendation typically is for a poured reinforced concrete sidewalk.
I
What's called
understand that.
the
You
stiff
said that at the
movement.
meeting last week.
Right.
And
I'm
we asked,
reiterating what I said last week. That is the state's recommendation. If we choose to do something different, just like the pictures from Burlington are within the DOT's right-of-way, the pictures in Litchfield are from the DOT's right-of-way. As far as the ones in Falls Village, they are not. They're on town property. So this being the DOT's right-of-way, we have to get their approval for it, but they have approved the concept of putting in a sidewalk. What type of sidewalk we want to put in and we will maintain, I don't think the DOT is going to give us a hard time about.
so now you're saying that the Litchfield picture that went around here, that shows pavers, and they're put in asphalt, or are they put in concrete? How were they done?
They were put in a bedding material. I believe the bedding material is what's called stone dust. They are
But
showing some...
we know that heaves.
Right, and it's heaving.
Yes.
Right.
And we also know that we talked about at the last meeting, the Lennox and West Stockbridge
Right.
efforts that are put in where they put 5 inches of gravel,
Right.
then they put asphalt, then they put a fiber in, and they drill holes in the asphalt, and the fiber keeps the sand that the pavers are placed in from going in, so it actually drains, and then they use a polymatrix sand that hardens over the years. And the additional advantage of that the highway maintenance people said to me is that since the biggest project coming up in West Cornwall will be septic connections, if we put in a 5-foot wide slab of concrete sidewalk, which people will have to live with for the next 50 years, as you pointed out, that all those connections to the Moose, to the Yellow House, to Baines, and to the beauty parlor, and to Todd Piker's, all of those will require jackhammering up the sidewalk and probably, patching them with asphalt, right?
Not necessarily. It's such a small space, it's easily jacked underneath. They push a sleeve through.
Maybe.
But maybe, I mean, who knows what's going to be done. But it's not a difficult matter to jack a sleeve under the sidewalk and then put the utilities, whatever they are, whether telephone, electric, sewer, water line, through these sleeves.
Well, I would just point out that the highway maintenance people in Massachusetts said that that's one of the biggest advantages that they found of the pavers, is because they can just take up a few pavers, and it's a big cost savings as well as, a time saver and visually attractive. The other thing about the garden strips, I mean, we already have a problem where nobody is maintaining the gardens at the bridge. I mean, we have a problem maintaining the front of our town hall. I was told we don't have a garden club. So we don't have a garden club in West Cornwall either. So if we put in plantings, etc., who's going to maintain them? Because we have a maintenance problem already.
We've got volunteers already. We've got volunteers.
Well, the volunteers ought to get down there, get their behinds down and clean up around the bridge as a starting point.
Yes, Phil?
I'm glad to hear the views on this. My understanding is that the purpose of this meeting is to decide on if we want to proceed with the concept. We're not here to argue how it's going to be done. And I would like to see us proceed with what the purpose of this meeting is. And with that, I would like to call the question.
Is there a second? Who said a second? Joyce did. All right. So there's no debate on that. We'll go to a vote now to call the question. All right, to call the question, all those in favor, vote yay with your hands up. Okay, I think we have to count this. Sorry, folks. 22 yays. Okay, now the nays stick their hands up. Nays, up, 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 up. 1, 2, 3. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, the question is called. So we will go now to a vote on the matter that we're here to vote on. Okay?
I call for a paper ballot.
All right, now we have to vote on that. All those in favor of a paper ballot, please indicate by raising your hands. 11. Noes, please raise your hand. I think the noes have it. All right. Let's go ahead and vote then. The motion that's been read to you is to the Board of Finance and Selectmen approve appropriation of $70,000 for the installation of this sidewalk as discussed today with 100% reimbursement from the State of Connecticut Main Street Investment Fund. All those in favor, please say, or hold your hands up and say aye. Aye. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20. There are 20 yays there and noes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 noes. Okay, the ayes have it. And the motion is passed. I'll hear a motion to adjourn unless there's further business to be brought to this meeting.
I need to adjourn.
Okay, Janet. Janet moves, we adjourn. Is there a second? Jack seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for coming.